Hello, welcome. This is the very first shareholder committee meeting for Dorset Innovation Park Limited. Have we any apologies?
No apologies, Chair.
We have the minutes to sign because there hasn't been a.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have the special meeting.
Oh, the special meeting.
of
Okay. Any issues with the accuracy of those minutes? No, I'll sign them later. Any declarations of interest from members of the committee? Public participation, there's no questions have been received. And item 5, no questions from councillors being received. Moving on to item 6, which is the shareholder committee for Dorset Innovation Park Limited terms of reference, presented by Colin Wood. Sorry, Colin. And can I remind people that if you speak for the first time, introduce yourself and say who you are.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. Morning, visitors. My name's Colin Wood. I'm the innovation lead for Dorset Council, and I'm pleased to present this report around the terms of reference for the committee. And just a little bit of background. So in March, the Cabinet approved the council-owned trading company to manage and develop Dorset Innovation Park. And it also set up this committee to provide the strategic oversight and decision-making on matters reserved to the council as the sole shareholder. So these reserved matters will be set out in the shareholder agreement, which is largely drafted, but we cannot agree that until the company has the substantive directors in place. We anticipate that shareholder agreement will be finalised in time for your October committee meeting. So today, the terms of reference presented as an appendix to my report were drafted in consultation with senior officers and with the relevant cabinet portfolio holder. They will be updated once the shareholder agreement is completed, adding a complete list of reserved matters as we heard. The recommendation before you today is to receive the terms of reference set out in the appendix and to support the continued cooperation between the council and Dorset Innovation Park Limited. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Colin. Any questions? No. Shane,
I know you say
introduce yourself, Shane.
Sorry, Councillor Shane Bartlett, cabinet member for planning and emergency planning ward member for Wimpleminster. You say at 1.4 the October shareholder committee that you'll hope to have the agreements in place by then. But there's some urgency around the innovation parks. You know what's coming. Is there any possibility of doing it quicker than that?
I think the difficulty with that is that shareholder agreement needs to be agreed with the company, and obviously the company and managing director won't be in place until around about that kind of time. So we're looking to have to wait until that person's involved. They have indicated that they may be prepared to do a bit of preliminary work before their notice period ends. So we'd like to look to agree that document for October and bring it forward there, but it's difficult to do that beforehand. So that's constraint.
Okay, well, thank you.
And just to clarify, the meeting is in October, according to this, it's the 3rd of November. Almost. Yeah. Richard.
Which big property assets, economic growth, shareholder committee says we'll not have operational control. Management company deliver that. At what point do we stop? Is it that when all the NEDs directors at a specific point in time? So currently we're overseeing the management of it. When does that cessation pass over to the company?
Yeah, I think, Richard, we will, Jan Britton, Exec Director for Place at the council. I think, Richard, because of the pace at which we're setting up this company, there's inevitably going to be a sort of grey handover period as we build up the company and move responsibilities to the company that we're currently holding. So I don't anticipate there being a single day on which we turn off what the council does and turn on what the company does. It's more likely to be done over a series of few months related to key events like the arrival in post of the managing director, the appointment of non-exec directors. But essentially, the timetable that sort of Nick had alluded to, October, November, December, is our transition period. So by the new calendar year, I would expect the company to be fully doing what we want the company to be doing.
Wouldn't want us to take our put off the accelerator and doing some of the things that we talked about.
So for example,
And
we've got a number of land sales being negotiated at the moment. We're not suggesting for one moment that we stop doing that and wait for the company. We're continuing to progress the aims of the innovation park while we set up the company.
In addition to that, Richard, we've obviously got some office and resource at the moment that we're playing into the park, and it's obviously helping set up the company, but is also progressing a number of actions in and around the park itself. So we mentioned previously the land acquisitions, the land sales, but also some of the kind of the business cases around some of the physical infrastructure on the site, the working with the tenants, the setting up of that tenants meeting. So all of that will continue to progress, and we'll have a smooth handover and transition to the new company as and when they can get their resource on board. We don't want to have that tail off. We don't want to have a gap, so we need to have that seamless transition.
Good.
So just to respond to Councillor Bartlett's point,
Will you
the
introduce yourself, sorry.
certainly Jennifer Cook, Legal Services. The waiting for the shareholder agreement to be finalised won't delay other actions companies undertaking.
Good, thank you.
Simon?
Councillor Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance. Jan mentioned, just want to pick up a point that you said, we will ensure that the company is doing what we want the company to do. Could you perhaps outline how we can influence what that is, whether it's through vision, business plan? The terms of reference are wide enough that we could, we have the flexibility to ask the company on our behalf to do an awful lot of stuff, and we have some quite interesting conundrums to work our way through. So perhaps just a very quick outline on how we deliver the vision.
Yes, the company is going to be charged with producing a vision and a business plan and a budget, the strategic documents that govern and set the direction for the company. But ultimately, those documents will be approved by the council as the company's shareholder. So we direct strategically the purpose and actions of the company by virtue of the fact that we agree the company's vision, we agree the company's business plan, and we agree the company's budget. So we don't act as an operating committee where every decision of the company comes back here for ratification. We act as a strategic directing committee where the company sets out for the shareholders medium-term plans, whether that be annual budgets, 3-year business plans, whatever else it might be. And it's in that context where we can have the discussion, say hypothetically, to take an example, we have a choice between an investment that creates a large number of really useful jobs and valuable jobs for Dorset, but maybe doesn't yield much in the way of income in terms of business rates or rents, versus a proposal that maybe only creates 1 or 2 jobs, but is extremely lucrative in terms of business rates or property income. Those decisions are the sort of decisions that the company would set out in the vision and the business plan, how they would navigate them. We would ratify that and confirm that, and then the company will act within those parameters in pursuing those opportunities.
Anybody else? There is one recommendation. Colin's already outlined. Is everybody happy that? Yeah. Thank you. So item 8 is it's Collingwood again. So this is the Dorset Innovation Park Limited Articles of Association.
So actually, I think, sorry, Chair, it's going to be me.
Okay.
So Nick Webster, Head of Growth and Regeneration. So as with Colin's report, this report sets out some of the background to the Articles of Association and where we've got to in terms of bringing forward the company to date, and don't propose to go over that again. But effectively, the Articles of Association is a set of rules for the company which cover the relationship between the company, its directors and shareholders. The company itself has now been incorporated in early June. It's got a model set of Articles of Association at this point, and we're now bringing forward a more specific set of articles for the company which have been drafted with support from legal colleagues. Delegation to the Director for Place is in place to approve those articles in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Assets, Property and Regeneration. And the recommendation to committee today is to receive those articles And what I would like to do quickly is just to bring out some of the key points and bring it to the attention of the committee. So, so within the articles that we've currently drafted, we've got some company objects, and the overall object is to oversee the successful management and development of the innovation park, to drive business growth and support economic prosperity in the local economy, and have that with a focus on the defence and security sector to achieve that. Now, to achieve that object, there are a number of ways in which that will be done. So it'll be helping businesses start up, innovate and grow, agreeing a vision for the park, setting strategic direction and investment priorities, in the drafting of any plans and strategies that help secure economic investment and job growth. The company objects also allow the company to make recommendations to the council and other stakeholders, such as maybe the MOD, to promote the economic success of the park. And the company would be working with neighbouring landowners or occupiers to potentially increase the size of the park. And then there'd be any other objects as the company considers to be necessary to support any of the above. So those are the kind of ways in which the overall objective to secure economic growth would be achieved, and they're set out within the articles. And then just a few points in terms of the kind of directors and the directors' responsibilities set out within the articles. The directors are responsible for the management of the company's business, and we're at this stage indicating that there's going to be a minimum of 5 directors and a maximum of 9. And that any decisions taken by the directors have to be taken collectively by majority decision. We are stipulating that meetings have to be at least quarterly, so that the regular drumbeat of meetings and decisions can be made swiftly and quickly. We detail the kind of conflicts of interest for developers, and we exclude any directors with conflict of interest from the appropriate decision-making process. As has probably previously been mentioned, shareholders retain the right to appoint the managing director and the chair of the company, and directors are eligible for remuneration and expenses as set out by the shareholder agreements. So those are some of the kind of key points set out in terms of, within the Articles of Association. Any questions?
Yeah. Repeat what I was, or
No.
just at 5.1, where we know that the shareholders can, through a special resolution, direct the directors to do something specific. So the directors in their meetings running the operations, and the shareholders here doing what we do, and the go-between is the officers, between the two. It's always about communication, isn't it? We've discussed the past debate. We don't want that conflict, or to be a relationship that isn't productive and isn't positive. So I'm just wondering, is this number of calendar meetings you got in place you consider to be sufficient for that dialogue between the shareholders and the directors, or is it better that it's left with the officers to be doing that liaison between the two? Just want to get clarity around
I think that liaison between the two is a day-to-day matter, almost, between the company officers and the council officers. The meetings are punctuations in that process,
like
rather than
update.
Exactly, they're not the only point of contact.
Yeah.
When this company is up and running, I anticipate it very much being part of our wider economic development ecosystem. So it's not that we're going to set this company up and float it off in grand isolation. It's going to be very much part of our wider economic development approach, as set out in the economic growth strategy that Cabinet approved recently. So I anticipate there being frequent dialogue between company and council at office level.
Let's come back. Yeah. As I say, I wasn't sort of drifting along the lines of micromanaging it. It was that it's about the communication, that we're all travelling on that same path.
It's in some respects it's no different from our 2 other arm's length companies. So Dorset and Dorset Centre of Excellence are talking to our officers, on a daily basis all the time. So, and that's how they operate. And we have quarterly meetings to check in, essentially.
There's provision within the articles for more frequency of meetings. It's got to be a minimum. So we could.
Can I ask a question? It's sort of on, I guess there's a forward plan, which is the next agenda item. And so in terms of the vision which we've mentioned, what's the expectation of when that vision will be presented?
I think with a managing director likely to come into post September, October time, the initial process of having the company up and running as an operating vehicle, I think we're probably talking about March, April, I would think, being realistic. We might get to the point where we've got something like an interim vision or an interim business plan that we can just see progress being made. But I think
So essentially 6 months after the MD lands.
we've got to allow enough time for the board, the directors, and a new MD. Because we don't want something that's superficial. We want something that's well considered and thought through and detailed and precise, so that we can see how success is to be delivered. And I think we have to commit a certain amount of time for that work to be done.
I would say, in addition to that, the company object set out in the Articles of Association gives a fair indication as to kind of the direction of travel. So it does set out that the remit of the company will be to drive business growth and support economic prosperity with a focus on the defence and security sector. So it gives us quite a strong indication as to the direction for the vision, and will allow officers to take decisions or to support the company in the setup of its own business in terms of how that might then be directed. So we're not necessarily waiting entirely for that vision. We can undertake decisions. We can bring matters back to this committee in that kind of in that vein.
So, Councillor Simon Clifford. So this brings me back to the point I made earlier, which is there are times where our objects might not be aligned.
Yeah.
Our business objects. And so we very helpfully outlined the process for how we could get involved in that. I just want to stress that by signing up to these objects, although the last one is fairly loosely defined, I hope that gives us the flexibility to have those conflicting conversations that might be arising.
And in examples which I've been party to in other parts of my career, it was normal that the company would bring to the shareholding committee a very early draft of the business plan or an outline of the vision, so that you're not presented with a fait accompli of a finished document that everybody else has seen and you only get to see when it's polished and done. So, I would be encouraging the MD and the chair to say, yeah, fine, do some work, bring it here, have some of those in principle big conversation questions, and use that to guide then the finishing of the. So it is very collaborative.
Okay. Any other comments, Councillor Biggs?
Comment really. Obviously, we've got our council plan objectives. We've got targets for the innovation part, job growth, 300 by the end of the period 2029. So we would expect their vision to include that growth anticipation, or disappointed if they weren't. Okay.
Is it worth mentioning here our position in terms of chief exec, managing director and chair of? So it's presumably appropriate. So we have appointed a chair, for the record, and we've made an offer for a managing director.
That's correct.
Can we name the chair?
You can name the chair because that appointment is concluded, but we can't name the managing director with whom we're continuing to negotiate.
So for the record today, do you wish to name the chair?
Mr. David Happy has been appointed as the chair of the company, and in future meetings, Mr. Happy will join this meeting because this is really an inception meeting. But in future, we would expect the chair of the board and the managing director to join us in these meetings.
Councillor Fry, I can't really bring you in. It doesn't work that way.
I get that. Thank you.
Okay. So the recommendation is to receive. So we've received, I think. Happy to receive. Okay. So going on to the next agenda item, which is the forward plan. There isn't anything on the forward plan passed today. I noted. So which is hence why I asked the question about the vision. So how would that be populated?
I
Going
think
forward,
before we come back to your next meeting, we will populate that using the sort of questions you've asked us. When do we expect to see the vision? When do we expect to see a business plan? How are we going to agree the budget? Because by then we'll be very close to the next financial year. And we will start building a forward plan in exactly the same way we would for cabinet or a council committee.
I probably should have asked this question on the previous item. So in terms of NED recruitment, that process won't start until.
No, NED recruitment is delegated to the chair and managing director. So we will report the NED appointments to the shareholders.
So that's more looking at the time. So I'm assuming that won't start until the managing director is in post.
I'm hoping that we can
Might
do
go
that
earlier.
in an interim period, because I'd be loath to hold that up for 3 months.
So we understand that members of the shareholder committee will be shortly contacted, or may already have been contacted, to look at dates for potential interviews of those NEDs.
Show I don't think we have yet.
Chairs involved as well. Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
That's slightly contrary to what I
Sorry,
said.
so the chair has been involved in that shortlisting process.
Yeah, just to build on what Jan has said, the NED, so as Nick said, the appointment of the MD and the chair is reserved to the shareholder committee, but the shareholder committee is also able to appoint other directors as it sees fit, but the directors themselves can also appoint. So those NEDs can either be appointed by the chair and MD, or they can be appointed by this committee.
Okay. And we're looking to go.
Sorry, I apologise. I misunderstood that intention.
So for clarification and where that bit in terms of is the current capital visions that we've got set aside and ultimate responsibility, or is that in general agreement? Obviously, it's our money.
Yes.
But they would obviously prioritize it. Where's that fit in, and
It's the
governance really around that?
one of the slight complexities of working in the company environment is that companies are potentially liable for VAT where we're not, while we reclaim VAT. So there's always a discussion to be had with the company about how money is deployed. And in many cases, I anticipate what this company will do will be to line up the project, line up the expenditure, but the actual expenditure will be done via council officers and council budgets, because that keeps a nice clean distinction between public money and company money. But we're still working through some of those details. But there isn't at this point in time an intention to bundle up lots of investment money and hand it over to the company for the company to just get on with. That control over the funds is a key mechanism by which the council controls the direction of the company.
Just a very quick reminder that, much to my complete shock, this is a loss-making enterprise at the moment, and so urgency is key here. So whilst I appreciate there are plans in place, we don't have a forward plan. As we populate this forward plan, I'd like to see it produced as fast as possible so we can start to turn this loss-making shocker around.
We are, as officers, we are intensely aware of that and working as fast as we can to address the issue.
Any other comments?
General comment, are we considering holding future meetings on that way?
If members on the committee are willing, I think it would be a great thing to do in terms of your knowledge of the site, the company seeing your interest in the site. I could only see that as a good thing to be doing. And there's sufficient space that we could certainly do that, even with it being a public meeting. We have to work out the technology for broadcasting, but that's not insurmountable.
The issue is member public just hold up on the gate and looking how we get them in, I suppose.
I think that sounds like a problem to be addressed rather than an insurmountable barrier.
Yeah, that is a problem, because I was turned, before I knew you could flash your badge, I got turned away at the gate because I wasn't on the list.
We'll work through.
That's the security protocols.
And I imagine the Battle Lab has got the tech to broadcast somehow.
Yes.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got very high speed internet. So, yeah, that's a good idea. I think we should probably look at that, to be honest.
Yeah, I do. We'll work, we'll line up what the technical barriers or security barriers might be and work out how to deal with them rather than let them put us off.
We may get, Chair, tenants turning up.
Tenants turning up,
to watch
exactly.
it,
No, that's a really good idea.
Great idea.
Any other questions on the forward plan, other than we used to get it populated? Okay, so the dates of the next meetings are currently set at 3rd of November. I guess it's currently here until we change the venue in the County Hall. 4th of February and 13th of April, and the next 3 meetings. Item 10, urgent items. There are no urgent items. And item 11, exempt business. There's no exempt business, so we can declare the meeting closed.